Salute Gilles, in honour of Canada's greatest Grand Prix driver, Gilles Villeneuve, on Montreal's unique island circuit in the St. Lawrence Seaway. A circuit that's hard on brakes, tough on fuel consumption, and the scene of a Grand Prix that could change the order of the World Championship. On a track where outright power and good aerodynamics are the name of the game, Williams-Renault drivers Alain Prost and Damon Hill have to be the favourites. Prost's unbroken run of pole positions is maintained in Canada with a time nearly a second faster than Ayrton Senna's 1992 record. But Senna unexpectedly leads the championship after 3 superb wins in a series which looks more and more as though either he or Prost will end up as number 1 for 1993. Ayrton is struggling in Montreal, though, starting 8th in his McLaren Ford, his worst grid position since 107 races ago. 27 years ago, this man, popular New Zealander Bruce McLaren, started his first Grand Prix in his own car. Now, the great team he founded is headed by Ron Dennis, and if McLaren win today, they'll equal Ferrari's all-time record of 103 victories. But it looks unlikely. Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger are driving V12 Ferraris that have been getting better and better after a long time in the doldrums, and they both start ahead of Senna. 5th and 6th on the grid, the team's best this year. But virtually all the teams in Montreal are shell-shocked by an edict from the race stewards that they're running illegal cars. Their active suspension and traction control systems, on which millions of pounds have been spent, are against the rules, it says. You can race here, but we're notifying the governing body. But whatever, it's the 5th Williams grid front row of the year, and a record 7th consecutive pole for Prost. Followed by Benetton's best of the season too, 3rd and 4th. It's Ferrari's best too, 5th and 6th, and Martin Brundle's 7th in his Ligier. It's Senna's worst since Austria 1986. Marc Blundell is 10th for Ligier, Michael Andretti is down at 12th, Rubens Barrichello an excellent 14th for Jordan, Derek Warwick an unhappy 18th in his footwork, 2 places ahead of an equally unhappy Johnny Herbert. Luca Badoer starts 25th and last for Lola as his teammate Michele Alboreto failed to qualify. Michael Andretti being pushed into the pit lane from the starting grid. He wasn't able to get away, and that means to say that he's going to have to start from the pit lane, maybe in the spare car. I can't tell you because I can't see the pit lane, but he'll either get his own car going, but they have to do it very quickly indeed, because here they are coming up onto the grid, ready to start round 7 of the 16-race World Championship Series of 1993 on the Gilles Villeneuve circuit of Montreal in Canada. It's on a man-made island, and Prost is obviously the favourite because his pole position time was nearly a second faster than Ayrton Senna's pole position record time last year. Andretti can't get the second car going, and it looks as though the unfortunate American is a non-starter. Although I have no doubt that they will be working very hard on his car to try and get him away. Anyway, concentrate on the starting grid. Alain Prost to the right in pole position for the 7th time this year in 7 races. He's been in pole position for every one of them. The green at the back shows they're ready to go. Damon Hill on the left, and behind Alain Prost, the lights go to green. A beautiful start by the Ferrari, a very bad start by one of the Benettons.
I think that was Damon Hill who got away first. He got a little bit wide on the exit to the right, but Damon made a beautiful start.
Yes, indeed. So there is the Williams, followed by Prost, followed by the 2 Ferraris. Ayrton Senna is up into 5th position. It's Hill leading. Prost is in 2nd position. It is Berger 3rd, Alesi 4th. Ayrton Senna is in 5th position, and Martin Brundle is challenging for 6th place. He started 7th on the grid. He's got Schumacher in front of him, Patrese behind him. So Martin Brundle has already made up a place by passing Riccardo Patrese, and we're riding with the Benetton now of Michael Schumacher, or we were. And that's Martin Brundle's Ligier ahead. Martin loves this circuit. He nearly won the Canadian Grand Prix last year when he was driving for Benetton. And Andretti is still in the pit lane as Senna comes right up alongside the Ferrari.
Yes, Senna really charging. And made a terrific start. He has not got the line, but he's taking it side by side, but he's got the line for the left-hand bit, and Senna goes through into 4th place.
Well, so much for the theory that Ayrton Senna might be taking it comparatively easily. He's charging. Hill leads, Prost second, Berger is in 3rd position, Ayrton Senna in the McLaren with the lightweight Ford engine is in 4th position. We're with him now, and that is the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger in front, and Alain Prost is trying to catch Damon Hill. There are no team orders, of course, in the Williams-Renault team. And if Damon Hill can stay ahead, he's got every right to do so. Prost will be trying to stop him. The Frenchman is in 2nd place in the World Championship and wants the points by getting ahead of Senna, who is now right on the rear wing of Gerhard Berger's Ferrari.
Yes, and Senna obviously taking a charge in the opening lap to try and get as many places up as he can from his grid position, and he's already made an outstanding 4 places from 8th on the grid. He was in 5th place at the first corner, and he is charging. Look, he's holding the Ferrari for power. He's going to have a look. And Senna is going down the inside, and he's through. Senna into 3rd place.
At the East hairpin, so he's only got the 2 Williams-Renaults in front of him now. Now he's going to have a job to catch them, particularly as Berger is carrying the McLaren Ford. Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari, which has been patiently worked on all season by John Barnard, Harvey Postlethwaite and the rest of the Ferrari people. They're much better. Alesi is ahead of Schumacher, who is just ahead of Patrese, who is just ahead of Martin Brundle as they go through, and they are now on their 3rd lap in this 69-lap Canadian Grand Prix. And here's a replay of Senna going through on the inside. He forces his way up alongside Gerhard Berger on the 1st gear, 30-mile-an-hour east hairpin, and they're accelerating away now around the rest of the lap.
Yes, and I was a little bit surprised to see Gerhard Berger leave the door open and not make Senna go round the outside there. But they, of course, were teammates for several years, and it may be that Berger felt that this was an irresistible charge by Senna, as Damon Hill coolly leading. Prost has now played himself in, but as I say, Berger may have well felt that he couldn't fend Senna off indefinitely, and therefore it was better to let him go before it all got a bit so exciting. But certainly an absolutely stunning first 3 laps from Ayrton Senna, with a car that he struggled with all weekend, but still, when the green light came on, he found inspiration.
And this weird picture is looking back from 2 cameras on Damon Hill's car. You can see how the active suspension, which is being outlawed incidentally, works, and you can see how absolutely stable the chassis is, and you can see in the background Alain Prost's Williams, and as James says, Alain Prost has played himself in now. He's leading by they're ahead of Senna by some 2 seconds. And Hill, well, that half a second is academic, because Prost is basically in the slipstream of Damon Hill's Williams-Renault. They're on lap 4 with, behind them in 3rd position, of course, Ayrton Senna, previous winner twice. And that's the fastest lap, 1 minute 25.3. That's 3 seconds outside the lap record, but very early in the race with a full fuel load.
Yes, and Prost now has caught Damon Hill until he can get past. His pace will be controlled by Hill, but the interesting thing now is to see if Senna is closing that gap. It was 3.5 seconds between him and Prost when they last crossed the line. He seemed to have made some impression on the Williamses on his first lap past the Ferraris. And he's certainly pulling away from the 2 much revived Ferraris at a most impressive speed. Now, a replay here from on board Schumacher's car, attacking one of the Ferraris, probably a lazy, with Berger in front of him, and Schumacher makes it through under braking for the chicane. Well controlled out-braking manoeuvre.
lap 5. Race order, of course, Damon Hill leading, Prost is second, Senna is in third position. In fourth position, it's Gerhard Berger. Fifth behind him is Michael Schumacher, and you can see the German now sawing away, trying to get past the Ferrari in front of him. Then it is Jean Alesi who is in sixth place. In seventh position, it is Riccardo Patrese. In eighth position, it's Martin Brundle, who's dropped a place therefore. In ninth position, it's Philippe Alliot going extremely well in the Larousse with the Lamborghini engine. And you watch Damon Hill. I say again, no team orders. Prost has got to fight his way past the Englishman, who has already led 3 Grand Prix this year, but it's not going to be easy. It's very difficult to pass here.
And the Williamses are, in fact, pulling away from Senna at the moment. And it may well be that Senna will be cutting his pace now to try and look after his tyres, but I suspect he's going to have to race it out in the normal way. I think his plan of patience and caution, well, it still exists in that he's going to have to get the car to the finish, and it's a very hard circuit mechanically on cars here. A lot of strain on the transmission. The hot weather today hot weather's always bad news for the reliability of racing cars, and on a circuit that strains the mechanical components anyway, you'll be expecting some attrition, but not as likely from the Williams Renaults as from some of the cars lower down the field, and they now no longer interest Senna as he's running in third place.
Alain Prost going faster and faster, but so of course is Damon Hill in front of him, because they're matching each other's lap times. They're coming down to the east hairpin again, which is the tight right-hander at the end of the lap, and they approach that tremendously fast. But when they come out of the east hairpin in first gear and go up through the gears in the semi-automatic gearboxes, which are going to be banned, as Prost closes up and takes a look on the inside and goes through. Alain Prost leads the Canadian Grand Prix on lap 6. He just dives inside Damon Hill, and now I have little doubt that he will pull away.
Well, I think Damon left the door nicely open for him then. He gave him space. Prost was alongside going into the corner, and that may well be a tactical move for 2 reasons. Damon will try his best, here we see it again, but he sees Prost coming, he makes the space, and now he leaves him a car's width on the curb. And so Prost is through, and he won't be more gentlemanly invited to come through than that. And Damon Hill will find it easier to follow. He should be able to pick up his lap time following Prost. Whether he can stay with him or not is another matter, but he's certainly going to try. But I would have thought that was a tactical move by the team, because Senna is still in a threatening position, and it's most important, with him still leading the championship, that the team get Prost on the move points-wise. Now we've got an action replay with Schumacher yet again passing Berger and dispatching the second, or the leading Ferrari. But this has been a promising race for the Ferrari team. Just the fact that they've qualified so well, the car is definitely improving up on a gradual basis, and that's good for everybody in Grand Prix, and tremendous to see. We need to see them right up front.
So Michael Schumacher up into fourth position behind Ayrton Senna by passing Gerhard Berger's Ferrari, and the race order on lap 7 as you watch Alain Prost trying to maximise his World Championship points, with Senna behind him in third position. Katayama has already been into the pits and is about to be lapped by the race leader. Derek Warwick has been into the pits. Michael Andretti is back on the circuit, out of the pit lane, and you can see for yourself the gap between Prost first, Hill there in second position, Ayrton Senna in third place, as Prost comes up to go past the Tyrrell 019, not the new one, of Katayama.
Well, in the traffic already, and Hill, of course, will cover Ayrton Senna behind him quite well for Prost, which is most important from Prost's point of view. But Senna's got a problem now, because Schumacher, having worked his way through into fourth place, is much more of a threat to Senna than ever either of the Ferraris could have been. The Schumacher was split the two Williamses initially in qualifying, well, not in qualifying, but they split him in the warm-up this morning, and the Schumacher and his Benetton have gone very well all weekend. So indeed did Riccardo Patrese in qualifying, but he was about a second away from Schumacher in the warm-up this morning. So Schumacher now has got clear road in front of him, and we'll get a gap between Senna and him and see whether it starts closing or not, because he certainly was potentially quicker than Senna hitherto all this weekend.
Well, there's about 3 seconds between Senna and Damon Hill in second position. There is Michael Schumacher in 4th place. 5th behind him is Berger. 6th behind him is Alesi. 7th is still Riccardo Patrese. 8th is still Martin Brundle. In 9th position, it is now Karl Wendlinger, who's moved up in the Sauber. In 10th place, it is Mark Blundell in the second of the Ligiers. And you can see Martin Brundle there challenging Riccardo Patrese. So there is the Benetton, there is the Ligier, and as I said earlier on, this circuit suits Martin Brundle extremely well. He was up into second place last year in the Benetton, and he will be very anxious to get past Patrese for all sorts of reasons, not the least of which is that Patrese is driving the car that Martin Brundle regards as rightfully his. Although with the Ligier getting better and better now and having undoubtedly the most powerful engine, the Renault RS5, which they share with the Williams team, Martin Brundle can't be regretting things now. The car is getting better and better. So, Prost, Hill, Senna, and this Canadian Gilles Villeneuve circuit, surrounded by water, gives a better impression of Grand Prix cars at speed than almost any other. You can see how far now Ukio Katayama has dropped back, and you can see that Ayrton Senna is reeling in Damon Hill in second position. And I remind you that Senna is a double winner here in Canada. He's won 3 Grand Prix against expectations this year already, as has race leader Alain Prost. That between them in the championship there are only 5 points. And Senna will be more than anxious to do well here, because when the power circuits come after this, the real power circuits like Hockenheim and Silverstone, the extra horsepower of the Renault engine is going to pay off in comparison. And that's Alliot touring out of the race. So that is the first retirement. Philippe Alliot in the Larousse has finished in Canada for this year. He drove very well, started about halfway up the grid, but he's out of the race. So now there, number 2, Alain Prost. Clear track in front of him, clean air, that makes a big difference, but all the time, concentrate your attention on Ayrton Senna. He is the man, and he had a lot of trouble in practice.
Yes, going much better in the race, and the fact is that he's about to catch Damon Hill because he was ahead, and that was Badoer in the pits, Luca Badoer in the Lola, and he was the last of the qualifiers on 25th place. His teammate Michele Alboreto didn't qualify, and there's been a real struggle for the cars this year. The Lolas just haven't performed. In the meantime, there is Alain Prost leading the race, pulling away from Damon Hill, but Damon Hill is about to be a very, very useful part indeed of the Williams team, or have the chance to be, because Ayrton Senna is catching him, and Damon Hill should, with the Renault engine, not find it too difficult to hold Senna at bay, despite the relative differences in experience, because when he puts his foot down coming out of the corner, he just goes away from the McLaren, and by the time they get to the next corner, it tends to be out of range for an attack. Prost in traffic.
Coming up to take Derek Warwick in the footwork Mugen, who looks as though he's in for another miserable race because he's been lapped already, having been into the pits already, as has Katayama. And you can see the first 3, and that is the Barrichello, the young Brazilian, 21 years old, in the Jordan heart, of whom so much was expected here today. He started in 14th position and was quicker than that in the warm-up. and had shown real skill at this semi-street circuit. Great pity that he's out of the race. Gerhard Berger 5th, Jorna Lacey 6th. Behind him is Riccardo Patrese 7th. Behind him is Martin Brundle 8th. So it is a close fought thing for those places. The two Ferraris staving off the Benetton Ford of Riccardo Patrese, who's doing the same thing with Martin Brundle. And how heartwarming it is to see the Ferraris going so well here. They are getting better and better, to the extent that there have been rumours that Ayrton Senna has been talking to Ferrari about joining them next year, which was precisely what Gerhard Berger hoped would not happen when he signed for Ferrari at the end of 1992. But the Austrian, going into the apex of the right-hander at turn 1 there, is driving beautifully. Alain Prost, the quickest man on the circuit, and Martin Brundle making no impression at the moment on Patrese.
Yes, and between second and third, Hill and Senna seems to be... Hill seems to be holding Senna at about a second and a half away, and that would be understandable in that Senna's car will be very much in the turbulence from Hill's, and that's Mark Blundell off the circuit. He's backed it into the barrier there. The rear wing is well awry, and maybe we'll see a replay of that to find out what happened, but he hasn't, unlike his teammate, Martin Brundle, it hasn't been a great weekend for him. A bit of a struggle. And as I say, there's a stalemate with Senna in the turbulence now from Hill's Williams. We'll find it difficult to get any closer for the attack, and it gets less grip on the corners. In the meantime, it's giving Schumacher a chance to close that gap very slightly. When he got into 4th place behind Senna, he was 6 seconds behind him. Senna got the gap out to nearly 8, and it's now back down to, well, in fact, Schumacher must have been in traffic, because it was down to 6.5, and Schumacher had lost over a second on that lap to Senna. So what I'm trying to say is that Senna and Schumacher at the moment seem very evenly matched when they're on a clear run. So another fastest lap for Alain Prost, who's just steadily turning on the pace. He's driving a hard race, and this shows that he's driving right on the limit, because his lap times are coming down by the odd 10th of the time, and that's as much to do with the fuel load coming down. And it shows that his tyres at the moment are still performing perfectly well.
Well, I'm sure nobody needs me to tell them about the brilliance of Ayrton Senna, but this race speaks volumes for it, because look at him, he's right up with Damon Hill. Senna in 3rd position, he started 8th on the grid, so he's fought his way past a lot of people, including the two Ferraris, including Martin Brundle in the Ligier, including the two Benettons of Schumacher and Patrese, who are chasing him hard. And Michael Schumacher is just about holding Ayrton Senna on pace, but there's a gap. Now, what are we looking at? A replay as Warwick in the footwork goes right down, and Damon Hill, now you can see that 23.9 compares with the lap record of 22.3, and that was Mark Blundell's empty Ligier, which they can, now you can see what I'm talking about. Watch those two wheels. Never mind, some other time perhaps. Here we are. Watch those two wheels, and those two wheels are the Williams, which Ayrton Senna is closing on as he goes into the right-hander before the east hairpin. Now, when they come down here, they're doing about 180 miles an hour, hard on the brakes, down through the gears, into first to 30 miles an hour. Trickle in comparative terms round the east hairpin, accelerate away and build up to 180 miles an hour again. There is no real straight on this circuit, it's all corners or curves.
That little action replay we saw just now, I thought was Johnny Herbert making the passing move, and Herbert, as the Ferraris do battle with each other, and it looks as though the Lazy going through. He's past Berger. They've been sitting nose to tail for the whole race so far, really. And Johnny Herbert, he was making that pass we saw in the action replay, and he is now up to 13th place from well down on the grid, and he's made up quite a few places. and will be driving very much for a finish. So look out for Herbert in the latter part of the race if he's still running, gradually picking his way through.
So here's a replay of Jean Alesi at the east hairpin, taking advantage of Gerhard Berger being mildly unsighted by Derek Warwick, diving through on the inside. No team orders in Ferrari, no quarter asked for or given, and we're with the Ferrari now, and that is Berger on the left as Alesi goes through, and now he is setting about the car in front of him. The Ferraris are going well indeed. Alesi 5th, Berger 6th, and there are the other positions ahead of them. And in 7th position, it is now still Riccardo Patrese. 8th is Martin Brundle. 9th is Wendlinger. 10th is his teammate, JJ Leto. In 11th position, it is Comas in the Lamborghini. And just to give you the top 12, Christian Fittipaldi going well in the Minardi after having a very torrid practice. Race leader. Now you can see for yourself the gap between 3-time world champion Alain Prost, number 2 in the Williams Renault. 3 times a Grand Prix winner this year. The man who's won more Grand Prix in the history of the sport than anybody else. 47 of them. Scored more world championship points than anybody else. 736 and a half of them. Crossing the line, completing the lap. Prost, so smooth, so effortless, but so very, very fast. Millimetre perfect on every corner. He's coming up to the right-hander at turn 3 as Hill continues to lead Ayrton Senna. And if there are going to be tyre stops, I would expect them to start in about 8 laps' time. 69-lap race, I would expect them to be coming in from round about lap 30 onwards, but your guess is as good as mine.
Yes, I would think they might, certainly in Senna's case, it could well come in earlier. Between lap 25 and 30, I would expect people to start coming, and if Senna is looking for something tactical, and Schumacher is starting to close in on him, he may well want to get his stop in before Schumacher is too close to him, is close enough to him to be able to pass on anything but a really messed up pit stop. So that, i.e. when Schumacher makes his tyre change and goes out behind, he will be behind Senna, because Senna will then have had the advantage of running on fresh rubber. At the same time, he needs to be far enough ahead of the Ferraris so that he doesn't want to come out of the pits on fresh rubber, going very fast, and then have to fight his way past the Ferraris again, because they won't be as easy to pass this time, probably.
Don't underestimate the performance of Damon Hill. He is sandwiched between 2 3-times world champions. This is, after all, only his 9th Grand Prix, 2 of which didn't count in the Brabham last year. And here are Berger, Patrese, Brundle and Wendlinger, Ferrari, Benetton, Ligier and Sauber. 4 different constructors. And Gerhard Berger is in that 6th position. And we're with the Benetton now of race veteran Riccardo Patrese, who started 4th on the grid, was accused earlier in the season of dragging his feet, and has certainly woken up this year with the Benetton in the last few races, and he's really going for it. So, Ferrari engine, Ford engine, Renault engine, Ilmor engine in those 4 cars.
Yes, well, Senna is currently only 18 seconds in front of Alesi's Ferrari, and that isn't enough for comfort. Berger fending off, causing a little bit of a train here. And I wonder if Berger has got a bit of a handling problem that's slowed him down a bit. He didn't have a happy weekend after his good opening qualify. Brundle having a look down the inside of Patrese, and of course this matters a great deal to Martin Brundle, and what a good meeting he's been having here. Qualified extremely well, and just as last year, going very well in the race, driving with a good measure of control as well as as well as a new turn of speed. And he'll be looking for a way, Martin Brundle, to use the power of the Renault engine to put it across Riccardo Patrese. Not that it's anything personal between the pair of them, because it wasn't Patrese's fault that Benetton decided to have him rather than Martin, but to put it across the Benetton team he would like very much.
Wendlinger's car that you're looking at now, the black Sauber, is the only one of these four that has not got active suspension, and it says a lot for Wendlinger that he's able to hold. And that's a Ferrari, so that must be Jean Alesi out of the running. The unfortunate French Sicilian looks as though he's out of the Canadian Grand Prix and out of the 5th position that he had. So now Berger is 5th. There is Alesi out of the race. So Gerhard Berger moves up into 5th position. And Jean Alesi, who's had such awful luck this season, because this is the 5th time that he will have failed to finish in his 7 Grand Prix. I think I saw a puff of smoke from the back there. It looks to me as though the V12 engine has had enough. And here they are passing him. Berger goes through to 5th place. Patrese goes through to 6th. Brundle goes through to 7th. Wendlinger is up into 8th position. And you see the body of Jean Alesi as it exits the Ferrari. Oh dear, poor Jean.
He's just reattaching his steering wheel, which is now required by the regulations. Because we have two incidents, some drivers legging off with their steering wheel tucked under their arm, and then the poor marshals find it very difficult to steer the car and manoeuvre it around when they need to in a hurry. Michael Andretti, the first we've seen of him, got problem on the grid, got running late. Yes, lost probably a couple of laps at the beginning of the race. Let's hope that he at least is circulating quickly and at least able to enjoy himself and find a few cars to race with as he goes.
Alain Prost now to 100th of a second, 1 second off Gerhard Berger's 1992 lap record. Prost just gone round in 1:23.3. Smoothly, calmly, he knows exactly what the position is, because thanks to the modern miracle of electronic communication, which is going to be banned also next year, he knows from his pit radio exactly what the score is. And he's coming up now to catch and to lap Michael Andretti, who got out so late. What a dreadful Grand Prix introduction poor Michael has had. 4 failures to finish. He's only finished twice. He's only scored 2 points in World Championship racing, in contrast to his rival Nigel Mansell, who's done so well in Indy racing.
Well, he could do his team leader a bit of a favour here, because he's got Prost coming up on his tail, and it might just be that he can get it round quickly enough to hold Prost up for a couple of laps. He would very much like to get past the Minardi first. He'll find it a lot easier to hold Prost up from that situation. But I'm sure the McLaren team will have seen this possibility and communicated it to him on the radio.
It's the Minardi of Fabrizio Barbazza, who created a bit of a sensation in the pit lane by landing one of the largest pike fish in the history of humanity in Canada when he was fishing yesterday. He's a great fisherman. Damon Hill in 2nd position, holding off Ayrton Senna very successfully indeed. The leaders are now on their 27th lap in the Canadian Grand Prix out of 69. And I think the attrition rate has gone very well. There's 5 retirements, so there's still 20 cars running. There's the Lotus going through. Damon Hill is about to lap it. He wants to get through here because they're coming down to the East hairpin, which is where Ayrton Senna could challenge on the inside.
Senna was hoping for the hold up from Zanardi's Lotus, but no such luck for him, because Zanardi was coming for some criticism this year, his handling of the traffic and his manners in traffic, but seems to have calmed down a bit then, and certainly he was exemplary in the way he let Damon Hill through. But Senna can now afford to tyre stop. He's got 30 seconds on Berger's Ferrari, and so if he got a good pit stop done, only Schumacher would pass him, and Schumacher would then have to stop. And so if he feels he's giving time away behind Damon Hill, it might be clever of Senna to go sooner rather than later if he's going to stop for tyres. On the other hand, he's never really been closer than a second and a half to Damon Hill, and that's as close as you'd want to get if you were really looking after your tyres and not wanting to get into the airstream. I mean, he's closed up a bit when there's been traffic, but I'm trying to surmise what Senna's tactics are. And Schumacher is closing in at about half a second a lap. The gap is the smallest it's yet been, down to 4.5 seconds. And the problem is that there's nothing Senna can do about it, because he can't pass Hill. That's not really a practical option. He just hasn't got the power. And Schumacher's catching him, and yet he's being held up effectively by Hill, although he's not right on Hill's tail. He's still being dictated to by him. So if he is going to stop for tyres, he's got to go soon, in my opinion, and his right front looks a little bit grainy, but that's not the best shot there. But I was looking at that a few laps ago, and it was also like that about 3 or 4 laps ago. So unless he's going to try and go the race on one set of tyres, I would expect Senna to be one of the first stoppers, both to get in front of Damon Hill by having a few extra laps on fresh rubber over him and staying to get into second place, and likewise to secure his lead over the Benetton from behind. It's now 4.8 seconds, so he gained a little bit on that lap, but that's as close as he wants the Benetton to be.
Barrichello's car that you saw by the side of the road. Well, Michael Schumacher, more's a pity we haven't seen much of him, but he's closed the gap from over 6 seconds between himself and number 8 Ayrton Senna that you're looking at now, to, as James has just said, about 4.5 seconds. And if he can keep going at that rate, he's going to be within sight of the McLaren. He's doing it within sight of it in various points of the course now, but he's going to be pretty close to it. And we're on lap 29 out of 69. As you watch Senna go right, left, I thought for a moment he was going to dive into the pit lane there, but he's definitely closer to second place Damon Hill now than he has been for quite a long time. Prost still well out on his own with a lead of over 9 seconds, and we're with Senna now. Now you can see the Williams Renault in front, and Damon Hill has got the traffic in front of him, and Schumacher has been into the pits.
Yes, and Michael Andretti was in front of Damon Hill, and I'm sure he would have been ordered to be no help to Damon at best in letting him get past. And I thought I saw a new edge of determination in Senna's driving as he's trying to close up, because there was another back marker ahead of Hill as well. So the tyre stops have commenced, and I think Senna's got to come very, very soon.
That is Aguri Suzuki in the footwork Mugen coming in, and you're watching now Michael Schumacher, who has dropped down to 6th position from 4th place as a result of that tyre stop, but now he will really start to fly. He's out on fresh, heated, new tyres, almost up to race temperature. He knows the course, and he knows with a clear track in front of him, he can get the pedal really hard down and go for it and try and catch Ayrton Senna. As you watch Andretti, who is still holding up, and there was Ayrton Senna behind him, and into the pits comes Damon Hill from 2nd position. So Ayrton Senna is up into 2nd position in the McLaren. Let's see how long that pit stop is for Damon Hill. It's quite a long one because the right front is still not properly on. This is much too long a pit stop. Damon Hill has got some sort of a problem. This is very bad news. 17 seconds for Damon Hill. It should have been about 7 seconds.
Yes, it was hard to see from where we were watching what went wrong there, but wrong it certainly went. At least 10 seconds awry, and there's been a bit of that this year with the very best teams having problems with wheels sticking on and things like that, as Berger goes in for his tyre change. Now, does this mean that Senna is going to stay out and try and run the race on one set of tyres? Because it would be most uncharacteristic of him if he's planning to stop the tyres on a scheduled stop. Of course, he's still got a lot of laps to do in which he can change his mind. But if he was planning a definite scheduled stop to let the Schumacher and Hill get the jump on him, his immediately surrounding rivals, I would have thought was out of character. So I now have to think that he's going to try and do the race, but no, getting everything wrong today, Murray. I am, and he's in. It's a good stop. It's an exceptional stop by McLaren. And Senna is away, and that should have him in second place.
Well, now the question is Alain Prost, because Ayrton Senna is still second. Is Alain Prost going to make a pit stop? If he is, it'll need to be better than Damon Hill's was, because Damon Hill took 17 seconds, Berger took a whisker over 5, Ayrton Senna took 5.5, so that means to say that Damon Hill lost 10 seconds to two of his chief rivals, and that's Martin Brundle into the pits in the Ligier. And Martin Brundle, you will recall, was in 8th position. We're going to have to let the race settle down a bit now, because it's always very confusing after tyre stops. Martin Brundle in on lap 32 as race leader Alain Prost. Now, is he going in? No, he is not. He keeps going for another lap. Now, we'll see what the gap is between Alain Prost, race leader on lap 33 out of 69, and Ayrton Senna in the McLaren Honda, who is in 2nd position.
It was interesting watching Hill's pit stop, and I would suspect there was some sort of breakdown of communication between him and the team then, because the team didn't appear to be ready with all the tyre warmers off. When Hill came in, it seemed that they were still taking the tyre warmer off the right front tyre, or one of the front tyres, and Jordan coming in, Boutsen, and it would maybe Hill took him by surprise, or they didn't hear him on the radio properly. And Senna is 29 seconds behind Alain Prost, but he's done one pit stop more than Alain Prost, as it were. Petrasian.
Yeah, well, let's just watch Patrese. I mean, this should mean that Alain Prost could come in and make a tyre stop and get out again, still in the lead, provided it was a good tyre stop. Riccardo Patrese, what was that, 5.7 seconds, and that was on lap 33 as we watch race leader Alain Prost. Now, nearly 30 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, and victory here in Canada matters enormously to both these drivers, two of the greatest of all time. People who live and are watching motor racing at Grand Prix level these days are very lucky, because Prost and Senna are undoubtedly two of the greatest that have ever lived, and we're able to see them racing against each other time after time, as they are doing now. And Alain Prost well on his way, but this pit stop will be absolutely crucial if he has to make one. He's on his 34th lap now, so Williams-Renault leads. Senna is in 2nd position. In 3rd place, it is Michael Schumacher. 4th is Damon Hill, and that is Christian Fittipaldi, who is in front of and holding up Alain Prost unwittingly. He'll see Prost in his mirrors, and he moves over, and Prost hurtles through, hard on the brakes. Now we'll know fairly soon if Prost is going to come in this lap. And if he's not, he's leaving it a bit late, because remember, Senna is out on fresh rubber, which is going to give him a speed advantage compared with the Frenchman in the lead. 29 seconds between them. Prost leads, Senna 2nd, Schumacher 3rd, Damon Hill is in 4th position. Up to 5th place comes Karl Wendlinger, and hard on the brakes. Into the pits comes Alain Prost. Now, if he takes much over 7 seconds, he's going to be in trouble compared with Ayrton Senna, who I remind you took 5.4 seconds. And this time he's managed to catch it. Remember the problems he had in Monaco when he came in for that 10-second penalty and stalled the engine twice, and he leaves in the lead as Michael Andretti comes in.
Yes, and that was a pit stop born of experience. Both Prost and the Williams team, Andretti on his way very quickly. Again, both Prost and the Williams team were clearly doing that one safely and surely. They had plenty of time in hand over Senna, and they weren't going to make any risks or do any panics and risk making a delay in the stop. So when they come round again, we'll get you the gap. Well, there we are, 13.2. Senna, I don't think has any realistic hope of being able to give chase to Prost if he has no problems. Prost, the car advantage is large. However, he will stay hanging in there because he'll want to push Prost, make him keep working to try and force mechanical troubles or even a mistake.
Well, now the question on lap 35 is Damon Hill. Alain Prost is leading by over 13 seconds. Senna second, there's the rest of them. Schumacher just behind Senna, and Hill some 6 seconds behind the German. Karl Wendlinger from Austria in the Sauber in 5th position, ahead of Riccardo Patrese in 6th place. And here is race leader Prost on that new rubber on lap 35.
Well, I expect Prost, if all is equal, to be able to dominate the race from that 13-second advantage platform he's got at the moment. But we look set for a real scrap for second place, because behind Senna, in quite short order, are Schumacher and Hill, and they are basically in reverse order of who's got the fastest car. And the gap is 2.8 seconds from Senna to Schumacher and 5 seconds to Hill, but Hill's got the quickest car of the three. Schumacher's car performed well, very well this weekend, and much better than the McLaren. So we have a possible closing of the concertina here.
Indeed, and Alain Prost goes through, holding that commanding lead, praying for reliability. But the challenge is for Damon Hill now. He will be expected to finish in second place, as he did in Brazil and at Donington and at Monaco, to maximise the points in the Constructors' Championship for the Williams team, and more importantly, as far as Alain Prost is concerned, to push Senna down and reduce the number of points that the Brazilian can get. He's in second place, is Ayrton Senna, some 10 seconds now behind Alain Prost. There is the McLaren Honda, and you just saw Prost go through in third position. It is still Schumacher, who is 5 seconds behind Senna. Fourth is Damon Hill, and Senna is the quickest man on the map.
And not only that, he's catching Prost. He's closed the gap, but bear in mind that Prost has been on a fresh set of tyres, and we know that he always plays himself in gently, just like at the start of a race. But so far, Senna has, there is the caption, he's got the gap to just over 10 seconds from over 13. 3 seconds since Prost came back onto the circuit after his tyre stop, has Senna caught. And a new fastest lap for Ayrton Senna, so he is giving it everything at the moment, as Damon is starting to close the gap to Michael Schumacher behind. Meanwhile, of course, with his charge, Senna has taken Senna another second clear of Schumacher. The gap there is 3.7. I'm sorry to feed you all these figures. Please don't get too lost, and we'll keep doing it to you.
Watching Michael Schumacher in fourth position, and there are 32 laps to go. So we are well over half distance now, with Alain Prost leading Ayrton Senna. This is Schumacher. Now that's an interesting graphic. On the left you see the RPM of the engine going up and down. In the middle you can see, now watch how quickly the speed changes. From about 30 miles an hour it'll go up to nearly 190, and on the right the green bar is the throttle pedal position of Michael Schumacher's right foot. Right off now, straight up, and he's doing 150 miles an hour and building.
Yes, and while that's been going on, Prost has got the message about Senna. He has responded with yet another new fastest lap in the race. And Schumacher. So, up front, fresh rubber, lightened fuel loads, and the first three drivers in the last couple of laps have all had a turn at setting a new fastest lap. The current holder of that honour is Michael Schumacher, but we've got a real race on. Carl Wendlinger, after his tyre stop, back onto the circuit, albeit looking a bit late. That looks like a loose seatbelt flapping around, or is it on this? I just saw something there.
The leaders are on lap 43 out of 69, and it is still Prost 10 seconds ahead of Senna, who is 4 seconds ahead of Schumacher, who is therefore marginally gaining on the McLaren ahead of him. Damon Hill still in 4th position, ahead of Riccardo Patrese and Gerhard Berger in that 6th position. Martin Brundle is still 7th. Leto has moved ahead of his teammate Wendlinger. Leto up to 8th and Wendlinger down to 9th. In 10th position and not yet lapped, although I suspect he soon will be, is Eric Comas in the sole remaining Larousse, because you will remember his teammate Philippe Alliot retired long ago.
Yes, and all the talk I gave about the heat here and how hard this circuit is mechanically on cars. This is a very competitive race indeed. We're 2/3 of the way through the race now, and to have 10 cars still on the same lap by recent modern standards is really, really good news.
Yes, and don't regard anything as a foregone conclusion. Don't assume that because Prost is at 10 seconds ahead of Senna, he's necessarily going to be able to stay there. The Williams is certainly not invulnerable. It seldom breaks down, but it has been known to, in which case it would be yet another victory for Ayrton Senna, further to increase his World Championship lead, and there he is.
Well, the man in the background, I think, might just want to dispute that with you, Murray. Michael Schumacher, who has got Senna very much in his sights. But getting past Ayrton Senna is even more difficult than catching him.
Yeah, and Senna's bearing down on Comas and Fittipaldi, who are battling for 10th position, and he's got to lap them, and if they get in his way, because they'll be thinking of their race, not of Ayrton Senna's, and Comas will be trying to keep Fittipaldi back. Fittipaldi will be trying to get past the Frenchman, and neither of them will be worrying too much about number 8, Ayrton Senna, who's bearing down on them, in which case Michael Schumacher could close right up on the McLaren. Now, there is the McLaren, and Schumacher, I remind you, is 4 seconds behind it and gaining.
Yes, I think Senna is so aware in the cockpit, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he'd clocked the fact that they're running. His fellow Brazilian Christian Fittipaldi, he's quite capable of calling the McLaren pit on his radio, saying, get down to the Minardi pit and tell him to warn Christian I'm coming. And he really does think of everything. Now, Christian Fittipaldi is certainly being very busy in his race. And Senna goes through.
And Martin Brundle is up into 6th position because Riccardo Patrese has gone missing. And just to underline what James was saying about Senna, and there is Patrese touring. Look at his left front wing. Somebody's trodden on it. And right front wing, I'm sorry, it's missing, and the left one looks a bit deformed too. So Riccardo Patrese is somewhat short of downforce in the front, to put it mildly, and they'll be putting a new nose on. He will have reported by radio what the problem was, but that's destroyed the Italians' chances of finishing in the first 6, I suspect. Meantime, the Benetton pit crew are changing tyres anyway as a precaution. That's a marvellous stop. 15 seconds to fit a new nose assembly with the right and left wings. As the McLaren goes through of Ayrton Senna, he's taken Comas now, he's taken Fittipaldi. Now he's got, there was Schumacher in the background. There he is, Now, if Schumacher can get past Fittipaldi and Comas quicker and more cleanly than Ayrton Senna was able to, he'll be right with the McLaren, which is in second place. We're on lap 46 out of 69. Prost leads, Senna second, Schumacher third. Hill is fourth, 8 seconds behind Schumacher, and new lap records all the time now. That's 0.2 of a second, 1:22.1 inside the old lap record. And I say again, that is with narrower tyres, smaller wings and different fuel. Great driving.
And Prost is only inching away, but inexorably doing so from Senna. The gap is now up to 11 seconds. And the fastest lap. You can hear the misfire on the traction control there of Senna's car. It works by the sensors to tell when the wheels start to spin, and it goes into the electrics of the engine and cuts the cylinder. Schumacher is progressing, but he's got traffic to get past. Now, Comas has got a pretty good engine in the LaRousse and is not an easy man to pass, especially because he's busy racing. Senna powering the McLaren around the hairpin, and he's got past Fittipaldi, I saw in the background there, but he's still got Comas, and it took Senna a while to get past Comas. There's Alain Prost, the leader. And Prost having to work very hard. He's having to race at full stretch to maintain his lead, or rather to extend his lead, but even then, at full stretch by very small amounts, and traffic ahead of him.
Notably Thierry Boutsen in the Jordan, who is in 15th place, chasing Derek Warwick, who is in 14th position. Prost goes through and takes Thierry Boutsen. I remember that's that very corner where the Belgian retired in a previous Canadian Grand Prix. And Prost is now doing what Senna is so famous for, threading his way through the traffic with great expertise. Senna does it by dominating and frightening the life out of the people who he's about to pass, and Prost has just gone through there. You were with him.
Yes, it is greatly helped when you've got probably 100 horsepower or something like that on the cars that he's actually passing, some of the less well-powered cars in the field, and that makes life very easy. Prost always takes a conservative approach to his lapping, and quite rightly so. But
that's Andrea De Cesaris, the Tyrrell out again. The Italian in the Tyrrell 019, and that's his 6th retirement of 1993 in 7 races. As Michael Schumacher, you see the gap he's created now between Comas and Fittipaldi, and that is Damon Hill in 4th position. Now he's got the Fittipaldi oblique Comas problem, but he's got more power to get past them than Michael Schumacher had. He will be hoping that he gets them on the right part of the circuit. We're on lap 49 and no change at the front. Prost leads, Senna second, Schumacher third, Hill is 4th. Up to 5th place has come Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari. So in the points still in 6th place is Martin Brundle, 7th is JJ Leto, 9th is in 8th position is in Wendlinger, and in 9th position Comas, followed by Fittipaldi, and that is De Cesaris.
Yes, and certainly your reference, Murray, to Prost threading his way well through the traffic is an important one, because he doesn't like doing that, but he's having to do it here because the traffic has brought his lead down to under 10 seconds again, although, of course, it's borrowed time for Ayrton Senna, the closing of that gap, because, of course, there's 3 cars at least that he's got a lap that Prost has already lapped, so, and he will inevitably lose some time. But for the moment, he is closer, and he's holding Schumacher at around 4 seconds, but and it's really now at the moment there seems to be a lot of cars on this area of the circuit where the leaders are at the moment, and they're getting through all this traffic, so then they'll have a clear run. At the moment, the gaps are really down to the drivers' skill and luck on the timing of how well they can get through the traffic.
Damon Hill up behind 10th placed Christian Fittipaldi, and Ayrton Senna is up behind one of the Saubers. Let's see which one it is. It is Carl Wendlinger.
Seems to be more like up behind half the field, Murray, with just one Sauber, and that will be a very daunting sight for Senna. But he'll want to really use his brilliance here to get through it quickly in order, and he got well blocked there, but in order to move through and try. Derek Warwick did, in fact, give him a bit of a chop, and again, and Derek Warwick is racing hard, and for a driver of his experience, he really ought to know better. He should have seen him coming, even though he's busy in traffic. Still, Senna is through, and Warwick made error there on the exit of the corner as a result of all that. So he actually hurt his own cause as well as Senna's.
So 54 laps out of 69 completed. There is race leader Alain Prost. In second position, it is still Ayrton Senna, with Michael Schumacher about 5 seconds behind the McLaren. In fourth position, it is Damon Hill. In fifth position, it is Gerhard Berger. And still sixth, and scoring a point if he stays there, is Martin Brundle in the Ligier. Prost, Senna. Lap 55. And I, for one, will be very pleased indeed if the traction control device is outlawed, because instead of hearing beautiful, crisp, clear sounds from the V12, the V10 and the V8 engines these days, all you hear is a ghastly sort of spluttering, which sounds like a misfire, but isn't. And, of course, it takes away from the skill of the driver, and that is what Grand Prix racing is all about. And there's big controversy here with the governing body and the stewards of the meeting having said that every team except one, the Lola team, is breaking the rules with having active suspension and traction control, and that something is going to be done about it by the French Grand Prix, which is in 3 weeks' time. Well, there's millions and millions of pounds being spent on developing those devices. The teams don't like it, the teams will object, and sadly it looks as though Formula One is going to be in a state of political disarray if that situation continues. But meantime, the fully everything Benetton, it's got active suspension, it's got traction control, and Riccardo Patrese coming into the pit lane again very slowly with no sign of driving urgency, and it looks as though he may well be out of the race. Riccardo Patrese to join the others, that's Luca Badoer and Barrichello, Alio, Mark Blundell, Jean Lacey, Andrea De Cesaris, now Riccardo Patrese. But up front on lap 56 out of 69, the same story. Alain Prost has led all the way, except those few opening laps at the start when Damon Hill was in control, and now we're with Schumacher.
Yes, and that's a readout of all his performance, but in the meantime he's closer to Senna. He was 4.3 seconds behind him when they last time we had a gap on it. That looks like rather less than 4.3 seconds to me. And Schumacher, and there's clear traffic ahead. This is at the moment an out-and-out race between the two without traffic. Up to about 13,000 revs in the gears. And yes, the gap is under 4.3 seconds. It's down to 3 seconds, and a new fastest lap in the race for Michael Schumacher, and he really has driven a tremendous race since the tyre stops seem to inject a whole load of life into this race. And there we see it, 1:21.682 for Schumacher, well under the old lap record. And at last we've got a really competitive motor race on our hands.
7/10 of a second under the old lap record, notwithstanding the lower downforce, narrower tyres and not so strong fuel. And Michael Schumacher, the man that could do it. What an incredible young man he is. After all, he's only 24, and this is only his second full season of Grand Prix racing. And in that short time, he's already had 4 second places. A potential world champion if ever I saw one. And he's really flying now. What he wants to do is not just to get that second place, but to get the second place from Ayrton Senna, to prove in the view of the Benetton team the superiority of their car with allegedly a rather more powerful version of the Ford V8 engine, which the McLaren rather grumpily uses because they feel that they are entitled to the same engine that Benetton have got. And that's Ayrton Senna in second place on lap 58, so there's only 11 laps to go. Being held up by Andrea de Cesaris. The blue flags are waved furiously. Now there is Schumacher. Now that's given Schumacher the opportunity to close up on the Tyrrell and then to get past it. It's not de Cesaris, of course.
Well, it is a somewhat ironical situation that the man leading the World Championship gets the Grade 2 engine and can't get the proper engine, and that of course is to do with politics and contracts and things like that, but on the face of it I think it's only right and proper that Ayrton Senna should have that engine, and that Ford should be able to make it available to whoever they want, because after all they developed the engine and they need to win as Schumacher gets closer and closer, and we don't need to bother with a stopwatch now to time the gap. We can see it.
And this, of course, is what Alain Prost up front would be hoping for, with the sight of Michael Schumacher catching and potentially getting past Ayrton Senna. I say potentially because all of a sudden that McLaren Ford will become the widest car on the circuit if Schumacher can get under the rear wing of it, because the driver's only got to marginally adjust his position on the track, left or right, to make it very difficult indeed anywhere, let alone this Gilles Villeneuve circuit at Montreal, for the driver behind him to get past. But if anybody can, Michael Schumacher will. Senna second, Schumacher third.
Yes, and this is a very interesting race now between two truly great drivers. Here we have Ayrton Senna, possibly, probably the greatest racing driver of all time, being pursued by the young man who aspires to everything that Senna has achieved and who is just as exciting as Senna was at this stage of his career. A truly great talent Schumacher is too, and they're in pretty evenly matched machinery. Schumacher definitely has a power advantage. The Benetton's running well, but Senna has an enormous experience advantage, and he's certainly still the quickest man in the business. So Schumacher, battle is now about to be joined.
Well, this is Senna's 149th Grand Prix. It is Senna's 29th Grand Prix, and it's a battle of the titans. McLaren did an absolutely fantastic job to develop this car in a very short time after they had lost the Honda V12 engine at the end of 1992, when the Japanese concern decided they were going to race in Formula One no more. 10 laps to go, as you can see. In front of these two, some 15 seconds ahead, is Alain Prost. And now the battle is on, because Schumacher is in the slipstream of Ayrton Senna's McLaren Ford. Now it's up to turn 2, one of the slower corners on the course. Turn 1, sorry, 40 miles an hour. When they brake hard for that, and they'll do that after they've gone through the right, left at the end of the lap, and this is the end of the 60th lap for these two drivers. Alain Prost, of course, well on his way potentially to win for the 48th time in his supreme career. Now watch the way Schumacher handles his car. Watch the angle of the front wheels. Watch the twisting and turning of the steering wheel. He's got a semi-automatic transmission, of course, so he never has to take his hands off the wheel. They're both on comparatively fresh tyres. They stopped some laps ago, but there's plenty of life left in their tyres. They've both got the same type of engine. They've both got active suspension. They've both got traction control, so it's down to the drivers. And Senna knows what the score is. He can see Schumacher in his rear mirrors. And there it is, 180 miles an hour. And backs off. What's the revs rising? 13,000, over 13,000 from the V8 engine behind him. Senna's got two problems. One, I think I have one problem, basically. I'm sure that Ayrton Senna, being the realist that he is just going as quick as he can to maintain such pressure as he can on Alain Prost, but without any hope of catching him. But the major problem, of course, is the one that we're travelling with now, Michael Schumacher, and he is edging up on the McLaren on braking there. This is lap 62.
Yes, the problem for Schumacher is he's entered into that dirty air zone where you can go so near, but to some extent yet so far, except when there's traffic. And this is important moment for Senna. This is when he's vulnerable, when he's got a slower car ahead of him. Now, what we can't see is where Schumacher is, but right there. Yes, and that was Suzuki, Derek Warwick's teammate. And they're both through, and it's a better view. Now we can see both cars, because we're looking from Schumacher's cockpit. And you see, he gets into... Schumacher was very close, courtesy of the back marker, but once they get going, the hole in the air that Senna's car is making affects his grip in the corners badly, because he's not getting clean air over his wing surfaces, which reduce the amount of downforce of the car. So we saw that earlier with Senna sitting comfortably behind Damon Hill without wanting to get into the dirty air. Schumacher now certainly does want to get into it to get a shot at a pass, but he just can't get right onto his tail. And in fact, the designers of modern racing cars spend quite a lot of time and trouble when doing the airflow of the car, of making sure that when the cars pass through the air, it leaves a real mess. Oh dear, goodness me.
Schumacher goes through, and it looks as though he's crippled Senna's car in the process. Yes, Senna's going in, and Schumacher was making a desperate lunge for second place, and he got it, and Ayrton Senna is out of the race, and that means there's no points. That will be 10 points for Alain Prost, and that will do his World Championship chances a power of good. But meantime, is there going to be a protest? Let's have a look at this replay. Now, there is Senna on the right. Schumacher gets right up alongside him, and it looked to me as though Senna's left rear wheel just touched Ayrton Senna's right rear as they went through. But whatever it... Now, here's a replay from Schumacher's point of view. He turns in for the left-hander there, across Ayrton Senna, and just clips the McLaren in the process. But he's second.
I had the feeling that Senna may have been in a bit of trouble already before that happened, and had slowed, and Schumacher but wasn't being helpful. But I think Senna got that impression anyway, that he had a problem already.
Well, it looks now, as a result of that, as though for the second time this year, the incredible Michael Schumacher that we're looking at in a car which looks absolutely unharmed by that incident is going to finish in second place. He was second in San Marino, and he's also had 2 third places this year. He's going to get, if he finishes where he is, as he passes Senna's car again, he will get 6 points for his second place, which added to the 14 he already has. Well, I don't think it'll change the position between him and Damon Hill. Damon Hill is now up into 3rd position. So Prost leads. We're on lap 64 now. Just 65, 66, 67, 68, and lap 69 to go. Replay again. You have a look. Well, Senna really did seem to have slowed right up, as James said. in which case it would have unsighted Schumacher, who wouldn't have been expecting that, and could explain the coming together of the two cars, the light coming together of the two cars. 5 laps to go. Alain Prost leads, potentially on 10 points, to give him 47 and lift him 5 points ahead of Ayrton Senna in the World Championship after 7 of the 16 races in the series. Well, Ayrton Senna has already worked miracles this year with 3 victories in Brazil, at Donington and at Monaco, in comparison with the Williams-Renault driven by this man, Alain Prost, that we expected to drive everything into the ground in 1993. But whatever Senna's problem was, it was bitter luck for the Brazilian. He was having to do something in 1993 that he's not at all used to doing, and that's driving with less power than the cars in front of him. And you will recall that there was a bitter battle between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost about whether Senna would get a drive in the Williams team this year, having offered to do it for nothing if they'd give him a seat. And he's on, or was on, about $23 million a year. He wouldn't have driven for nothing, of course. He would have got a lot of money. But that's an indication of how much the Brazilian wanted to drive a Williams-Renault. And you can see the reason now. That's it. Alain Prost. Just 4 laps to go. He's on lap 66 now. He has a comfortable lead of 15 seconds over Michael Schumacher. And I suspect that the German, knowing the situation, will have backed right off and will be taking things easy, knowing that in the time that's left, no matter how hard he charges, he cannot catch, let alone pass Alain Prost. He'll settle very thankfully for 6 World Championship points from another second position, with Damon Hill a very well-deserved third. There he is, coming up to pass Karl Wendlinger's Sauber, which is in 6th position. Sorry, in 6th position now. So the Sauber is in the points again. There's Derek Warwick. And the race order on lap 64, and they're now on lap 66. Alain Prost leading, with Schumacher in 2nd place, Hill in 3rd, Berger lapped in 4th position. Up to 5th has come Martin Brundle, 6th is Wendlinger, 7th is JJ Leto, 8th is Eric Comas, 9th is Fittipaldi, and in 10th position is Johnny Herbert. As you look at the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger going through and taking Derek Warwick in the footwork Mugen, and the Englishman is very well down the field. He's in about 15th place. For a team that has spent a lot of money this year and are continuing to spend a lot of money, footwork, because amongst other things they're about to use on a purchased basis the McLaren active suspension, just as it's been banned, and that will have cost them a lot of money, and they have had very little to show for it this season, because the highest place that they've had was Derek Warwick's 7th position in South Africa. However, Alain Prost now, between him and another 10 points to lift him to an incredible almost 750 World Championship points in his career, which started in Formula One in 1980 when he drove for McLaren, before going on to drive for Renault, for Ferrari, for McLaren from 1984 to 89, when we had so many memorable races between him and Ayrton Senna, who the two of them fell out so thoroughly. And now for the Williams-Renault team, Alain Prost out of racing in 1992, having been fired by Ferrari in 1991, spent the whole of 1992 using all his political skill to make sure that he got a drive in the best possible car, and my goodness, he's done it. Victory in South Africa, victory at San Marino, victory in Spain, and not very far off victory in Canada if he just keeps going. He's on his 68th lap now, He's about to start his 69th and last lap. Out of the east hairpin, 15 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Soon, when you see him go across the grid, he will be on his last lap.
Yes, this has been a very good race by Prost. He's done everything right. Well, he made a relatively poor start. In fact, I think it's fair to say Damon Hill made an excellent one. And once he had established himself in the lead, Hill let him go, really. And he paid himself in, usually. And then he drove with tremendously consistent speed, which is Prost's real hallmark of his quality driving. The fact that he can be flat out and lap time and again within a tenth, and he was just chipping away at fastest lap all the way as his fuel load came down. And it's been an untroubled race, and none of the tactical stuff that tripped him up earlier this year has come into play, and he's really driven very well indeed today. Tremendous challenge by Senna to go from 8th on the grid to 4th after a couple of laps. The way he just bullied his way past the two Ferraris was sensational Donington-style stuff, and he got himself forced his way into 2nd place, and then he will feel that was really cruel luck. It looked to me like a mechanical problem had already occurred on his car, that he had slowed when Schumacher inadvertently clipped him. I don't think that was the reason for his retirement, and that's twice this season that Senna has been robbed by mechanicals when in a pretty safe 2nd place before a race, and he will rue that very much. It happened in Imola as well. So Prost comes in to take an excellent victory.
For the first time in his 190 race career, Alain Prost wins in Canada. It's his 4th win of the year, and it puts him back into the lead of the World Championship of 1993 after an absolutely immaculate drive. Michael Schumacher finishing in 2nd place, coming across the line out of the left-hander. Now we wait for Damon Hill to make it 14 points for the Williams team in the Constructors' Championship, further to increase their lead over McLaren. But it's been Alain Prost's race, and here is Damon Hill in the 2nd Williams Renault. Prost the winner, Schumacher in 2nd place, Williams wins, Benetton 2nd, Renault engine wins, Ford engine 2nd, Williams 3rd, Renault engine 3rd, that's Damon Hill. And behind Damon Hill, those are the only 3 men to go the full distance in Canada, 69 laps. Gerhard Berger is already home in 4th position. In 5th position to get 2 more points for Ligier, Martin Brundle, which will have done his morale a power of good. A point for the Sauber team from Karl Wendlinger for finishing in 7th place. In 6th place, I'm sorry, in 7th position, it's JJ Leto. In 8th position, it is Eric Comas. And in 9th position, it's Christian Fittipaldi, the young Brazilian in the Minardi. And Alain Prost, the man of the day.
The car was working very well, but I must say that it was more difficult than I thought during the last 2 days. In fact, today, I don't know why exactly, but the Benetton and also the McLaren were much closer than I thought. So it was good because the car was working perfectly, but I had to push very hard during the whole race because Michael was pushing Ayrton very hard at the end, so I had to keep the gap. It was not so easy. Also, it's a very difficult track, I mean physically, because you have to brake very hard, very often, and after a few laps, you don't feel your right foot very well, you know, so it's very difficult. Also, I had to overtake a lot of cars. I mean, normal circumstances, you know, but I'm quite happy, and the team has done a very good job. It's the first time we race with the power throttle, and we won the race. I'm quite pleased.
Before the race, Alan, you told me this was your 2nd French Grand Prix. The next one, of course, in 3 weeks is the real French Grand Prix. You must be looking forward to that. Yeah,
it was half French, this one, but yeah, the next one for sure is going to be very important. I would like to win it because I always find extra motivation in France, and it would be good also if I win for the championship.
Before the start, I really was thinking to be on the podium, maybe I was thinking as well a bit further than I was about second place, because the car worked fairly well in the warm-up, and I knew we have made the possibility to overtake one of the Williams, especially at the start. But as you saw in the start, it didn't work very well. I had a problem with my traction control. I nearly stalled the engine. I did it twice, and I was lucky to start the race. After I started then, I think I was in 11th or 12th position, something like this, and I came back to second position. And to come back to second position from this position is something like a victory, and I have to say the team has done a good performance, has done a good job. Like in Monaco we were a bit unlucky, but here we finished the race in a good position. That's fantastic.
You were having a tremendous battle with Senna, and you also looked as if you were enjoying it.
Yes, I did enjoy. I always enjoyed fighting, especially with Senna. He's a good driver and a hard driver, and if you can fight with somebody like him, that's a good sign.
Did the cars touch? I mean, you seem to be terribly close in the overtaking manoeuvre.
It was more than close. We nearly touched, and I was quite afraid going off in this situation. I didn't know where he moved, and probably he hasn't seen me. He was struggling with his car, and I really was lucky because there was not many space left, but I got through.
Well, I made a good start, as I tend to feel quite comfortable at starts, and I was concerned for Michael, despite what I might have said before the race. It was obvious that the Benettons were going to be a factor here, and I was concerned to make a good start. And once I got ahead in the lead, it was important to keep pushing, because I could see that Ayrton was behind us, and it was important to try and pull away. And the first few laps of the race seemed to be going to plan, but after I dropped back to second place, it was more difficult to... I was pushing quite hard to stay ahead of Ayrton.
You had a fairly difficult pit stop, didn't you? They didn't seem to be ready for you. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. Yes, I was expecting everything to be going to plan, and the pit stop itself wasn't bad, but I could see them running around looking for tyres, which is something I haven't had a chance to talk to them about yet. But the car ran reliably through the race, and that is credit to the Williams team. And this is a very hard race on machinery, and both our cars finished, and I'm very pleased to have come third and get another podium finish.
And with 7 races completed in the World Championship this year, Alain Prost moves back into the lead of the World Championship, 5 points ahead of Ayrton Senna, down to second. Damon Hill still in third position with 22 points, 2 ahead of Michael Schumacher in the Benetton. And in 5th position now, it's Martin Brundle in the Ligier. Williams were well ahead in the Constructors' Championship before Canada. Now they're 25 points ahead of McLaren, and McLaren in their turn are 19 points ahead of Benetton, who are 12 points ahead of Ligier in 4th place. In 3 weeks' time, it's the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours. That is Alain Prost's home circuit. Is he going to make it 5 wins of the year there? Watch the whole race live on BBC One.